A prerequisite to becoming an American is knowing the English language. I mean, you could come into this country and not know the language, but it's English is what we speak here. And probably some of the pushback that people have against immigrants, such as from Mexico, coming over here is that they don't want to speak English. And that's going to be an obvious pushback. That isn't racism, that's just reality. The reality is we speak English here, and everybody should speak English that's in America. You know, we should all be able to speak English here. Or have a translator, have some part of your family that does the translation, because obviously the older folks are not going to be able to know the English language. It's very hard to learn English later on in your life, so it's going to be the children that are going to do the translation, you know, for their parents. It's a tremendous stigma to live in America and not know English. It's also a tremendous stigma to live in America and not be able to read. That's the reason why, because I mean, there's just so much stuff that has the English language on it, and if you can't read the signs, if you it will make you feel disadvantaged, and you can find ways around it, but it's a circus act, I'm sure. Um, I've grown up knowing the language, so it's not been a problem for me. But um, if I look at if I listen to foreign music, I don't have a problem with what the words are because to me it's music. But they could be saying all sorts of things in there, and I would not care as long as I don't know. I mean, it can't hurt me if I don't know what it is. Other people may laugh at me because I don't know what they're saying in the song, but it doesn't matter to me. It's the music that I listen to it for. Music is a language that's the same all throughout the world, and we should be accepting of all different kinds of music. So you can bring your music over here. You can bring your I've Mexico. They have I've heard kind of something that's a little bit like polkas. You know, they use accordions and they have these stories in the song, but we don't understand them over here because there isn't English versions of them. And some people will learn Spanish just to hear those songs. That's fine. The problem is when you want to get something done, you have to say it in English. You can't say it in Spanish and expect people to interpret it. There's going to be a dominant language. If a lot of people speak one language, there's going to be a dominant language. And I have a feeling that the cultures will still remain, but the language will become a kind of a mix of all languages, and that's what the English language is. It isn't one language that's apart from all the others. It's made up of words from other languages. It's adopted words. If there's a word that doesn't just really do itself justice in the English language, that there's no word in the English language that expresses something that's in a word from a foreign language, it'll get adopted into the language. That's the way it's always has been. And so when you're learning English, you're kind of learning a mix of languages. And when you speak English to somebody else who doesn't understand it, they will be able to pick out bits and pieces of their language from the English language and understand things. So it might actually be the best mix of everything. Um, that's the thing about it is that even though it's a very difficult language, and I've heard it's difficult, but you know, I've heard that Navajo takes you it can take you 10 years to learn, and it's a very difficult language, but I don't know if it has as many expressive words as there is in the English language. The English language is very complex. It's got a lot of words, and there are a lot of words that most people who speak English don't even know, you know. You only work with a subset of the words that exist in the English language. You don't work with all the words. And so the subset's all you need to understand. And so, but that's really the pushback that people have. If you can master the English language, they won't have any problem with you. If you're speaking Spanish and that's all you speak, then they're going to clutter you up with all Spanish speakers who don't speak English, and they're going to, it's going to be like they're racist towards you. But it's like, I can't deal with you. I don't have any problem with you, but I can't communicate to you. And if you don't speak my language, then you're kind of just like every other guy who speaks Spanish who doesn't speak my language. You see, it's people I can't communicate with. So how can I even identify with you and we can't even communicate? Okay. So that's going to produce a kind of a racism. Okay. And in that case, it's what it is that it's a foreigner or somebody who has made themselves distant because they're not adopting the culture or the language of the country they're in. So they've made themselves a foreign entity, a distant entity, and they'll remain distant until they adopt something from that country. See what I'm saying? And so once you adopt it, once you start to speak the language, then you can interact with people of that, and then they'll start to see that you're like them, and then there's less of a chance for a separation, because it's not that you're getting segregated, it's that you're segregating yourself by not adopting the language. That's the problem. And so you have to learn English. It's a requirement in America, and it would be in your best interest to do that, because otherwise there's going to be a lot more pushback. And this isn't a country that has such pride for the Spanish language. See, um, you're not going to be able to say, well, I'm going to be in this country, but I choose to speak my own language. I'm not going to speak English. That's just going to create pushback, and people are going to say, well, you don't need to be in this country. If you can't speak English, we don't want you in this country. You see, you're going to get that kind of pushback. And so making the Spanish language a dominant language in America is just not going to happen. You can try for it. It may happen over time, but I kind of doubt it. And the reason why is because I don't believe the Spanish language has as much intricacies as the English language does. You would have to go and prove that there's enough words to express everything. And I don't believe Spanish has enough. And for that reason, if Spanish is lacking in the amount of lex, the amount of words to describe things, you're not going to be able to make it greater. You're not going to be able to use it as a substitute for English. Okay, you're just going to have to learn English altogether. And if you just don't choose to learn English, it isn't our problem; it's your problem. You're basically choosing to be ignorant, and you know, being ignorant of the language, it doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It just means that you're not willing to step up and learn the language. Okay, and so it's very important that you learn English. Another thing is there is racial tension in America, and people tend to clump people together, and there are people here who are Spanish who do not like the Mexicans. They consider them to be some other kind of people, okay? And so it's like people from Spain. It's kind of a snobbery. People from Spain, I guess, come over here, and then, they don't consider the Mexicans to be equals. You know, I've heard that there's some snobbery there. I also feel like a racial pride is just pretty much the same thing as racism. If you have a pride for your race, that's racism. If you, it's kind of an inverse racism, because what you're doing is you're raising yourself up with a superficial thing. It has nothing to do with you. It's not something embedded in you. It's you trying to say, I mean, what is it that you're saying that we're equals? We've got our own differences. It's a difference, or is it superior to the culture that you're in, or the country that you're in, to the culture that exists there? If that is, then it's racism. Or if it's race oriented. If it's not race oriented, it's like a clique, you know. But the thing is that it's something to you. It's not going to be really something to anybody else unless you can actually live up to it. And that's why in the Bible vanity is a sin, and any kind of pumping up of your ego, saying you're better than other people and stuff like that, that's a sin. Because the thing is that it's superficial. It doesn't really make you any better. It just makes you prettier. It just makes you more presentable. But in reality, what are you? You are what you do. And you are not what you look, you are what you do. And if you do bad to other people, it doesn't matter how you look, to other people, you look ugly, you know. See what I'm saying? And that's the problem with being proud of stuff that isn't really, it's making something out of nothing, you know. Sometimes that can be good, but and I think that whenever people enter the military, what they try to do is they try to strip you of all that superficial stuff that would make you unique, you know, the way you dress, your hairstyle, all that goes. They make everybody look the same, because otherwise there would be special treatment among the groups. They still do it though, you know, the people of certain races will hang out with other people of the same certain race in a military unit. It's probably become less so, but that's the problem is that you're trying to get everybody to communicate and everybody to work together as a unit, rather than being little, you know, countries, little specific race, country type, language, you know, separate parties, you know. Because then if that happens, then it's going to be really hard to get people to do stuff, because then they're going to you know, say, well, I don't have to take this from you because you're a blah 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 blah. And then you can't get stuff done because people are holding grudges against each other over race, over language, over what part of the country they are from, what from city, you know. Like if some of the guys are from Dallas and I'm from Fort Worth, and I say I don't have to take this from, you know, people from Dallas, you know. That's the thing, is that's the reason why they try to strip you of all of that when you go into the military, is to get you to communicate better, and to stop holding grudges, and to see everybody as being like you. It's trying to get you to identify with each other more quickly, rather than being distant over the way you dress, the way you look. When everybody is made to look the same, it makes makes it easier for people to identify with each other, because then they can start to see that other people are like them. They don't see the earrings and the multiple tattoos and all that kind of stuff. They might hear somebody talking more effeminately, but it's not going to bug them that much, I would think. And so in the military, they try to remove a lot of that to get people to work together. And I've had, I've said things in the past. The military tend to get the younger people. This is kind of a cop out. The military shoot for the younger, the young ones, the 18, 19 type people just getting out of high school. They shoot for those people because they figure the rest of their life is downhill. And so it's easier to get them into a war because they're ready to, they have no problem with dying in a war. And the older folks would have more of a problem because they have grandchildren and they have children and they have people at home and stuff like that. A teenager's not going to care so much about that because some of them are suicidal. Teenagers tend to be more suicidal than older people, because I had heard that it's because their brains are not fully developed. So I don't know, maybe that's not a really good reason. But it seems like the military goes after the younger ones. Also, they're more agile and they're able to go and do things, you know, better than somebody who's older. And also, they want to find meaning in their life, and you know, they in the military, you know, even though you might get in a war, you might kill yourself. If you don't, you're going to acquire. If you try to avoid that, you might be able to try to avoid that. You might be able to find skills, technical skills that you can use outside of the military when you go back to the real world or the civilian life. Because whenever you're in the military, they strip you of your civilian rights. You have less rights when you're in the military than you do when you're a civilian. And so it's kind of like, once you've been in the war, we respect you, but once you're in the war, you're a soldier, and you abide by a different class of rules and laws and things. I've not been in the military. My father told me don't get in the military. He was in the military. He had he told me some of the scary things that he came in contact with. Like he said there was a group of people who were gay, but they were different kind of gay. They were not they were not the gentle gays. They were the rough ones. You know, the ones that if they wanted to have sex with somebody, they have sex with them. They didn't care one lick. They didn't care about consent whatsoever. You know, they would rape you. And so there were guys that would talk about that stuff like that in the military. And that was back in whenever he was in the Korean War. He didn't go to war in Korea. He just was in the camps over here, kept in the reserves or whatever. But, you know, I guess he maybe had more phobias. And there was an arm of there were some barracks where some of the guys were more gay. And they were more flamboyantly gay and kind of like making passes at heterosexual men. And his just the thing is, you just stay clear of that kind of stuff. But that, you know, I don't know if there's a whole lot of that anymore. Don't know. But you see some things when you sorry, I just ate 2 Big Macs, and so I got little pieces of lettuce hanging around inside my mouth. So, but if you come to this country, don't ever get in the military. Avoid the military at all costs, because it seems like every time they put a Republican president into the House, and every time they vote for a Republican president, he's got to go to war with something. And the reason why is because they're trying to create the unity that we had in World War II. And what I'm pointing out with people is that COVID's doing that. And we didn't have to vote for a Republican president in order to get that. But we had a Republican president in the House when that happened, and he couldn't see it for what it was. You know, he saw it as he he turned it around and said, "Well, you know, you don't have to get vaccines." And then he finally got sick, and then his tune changed. But the thing is that this is not about freedoms. This is about getting our freedom back. And we're trying to get our freedom back. And how do we get that back? By trying to either master this problem of COVID or eliminate it. And that's the freedom we're fighting for. And COVID is like the Nazis. And COVID wants to take over the world, and we don't want COVID to take over the world. So how do we do that? We fight COVID. And how do we fight COVID? We take vaccines. And there are people that don't want to take vaccines, then they're just like, you know, I have freedoms too. COVID don't understand those liberties that you have. They don't give a shit. If you don't take the vaccines, you're going to be put in a concentration camp and gassed. You know, your life's going to be taken, and your children's lives are going to be taken, and all those people around you that are unvaccinated, their lives are going to be taken. And this is all because you didn't see COVID for what it was. You're essentially fighting a Nazi regime in the form of a virus. Okay, this is a virus don't go give a shit about you. So that's what I'm saying. You just need to put it in perspective.